What was it about Nicholas Sparks' novel that made you feel like the lucky one, Scott, in being asked to direct it?
Well, I was sent the screenplay by Warner Brothers and Denise Denovi, and it was the premise of the story that really hooked me. You know, this Marine in the thick of battle in Iraq, he finds this photograph in the desert and comes to believe that the young woman in the photograph has somehow saved his life. So when he goes home and he finds it hard to fit in, he decides to set out and find this woman and thank her for having rescued him. I just thought that was a great premise for a movie, and particularly a romance like The Lucky One.
And you mentioned the thick of battle. The opening scenes in Iraq are very immediate and quite confronting, actually, as you take us into the midst of the action. And a departure from the novel, actually, as well. How important was it for you to signal that this film was very much grounded in reality?
Well, I wanted those opening scenes to have an impact and for the audience to understand where Zac's character Logan had been and why he was the way he is, which is sort of somewhat uncommunicative and sort of silent type, doesn't sort of find it easy to express himself. And so I wanted to throw the audience right into the thick of it and to hopefully create those scenes as authentically as I could. And I got a lot of inspiration for that from clips that one of my sons showed me on YouTube of night raids in Iraq, and I thought if I could just capture some of that feeling that was evident in those tiny little grainy green videos on my computer and put it on a big screen, that maybe the audience would share that same feeling. And so it was an exciting way to sort of tackle something, if you like.
Yeah, and a great opening to the movie.
Well, I even hope that, that people go like, have we walked into the wrong cinema? I thought this was a Nicholas Sparks film. And, so it's a jolt, and it's meant to be.
And why was Zac Efron the perfect choice to play Logan Tebow? And what did you admire about his commitment to portraying those emotions and also the physical training he did?
Well, I was just very impressed with Zac when I met him. That he had this sense of commitment to reaching for this character who's really outside of his comfort zone as an actor, and this was a very deliberate choice on his part. Wanting to, I think, expand the world that he moves into as he is now a mature adult, obviously, and I liked that sense of commitment and his eagerness and his enthusiasm, his energy, and really all through the process of making the film, he demonstrated and maintained that sense of commitment to his craft in a way that really thoroughly impressed me.
And as an Oscar-nominated screenwriter yourself, how involved were you in the adaptation process? Did you work with Will Fetters in creating the screenplay?
I worked very closely with Will Fetters and changed the structure of the screenplay, added elements, to sort of connect the dots in some of the story, and a lot of detail. It's the way, it's what you do as a filmmaker. Really, you are telling the story, and of course, the screenplay is a great starting point, but it's in a constant process of development and evolution. Even when you're shooting, you're writing or rewriting things because it becomes more evident whether a scene is now redundant or not, because you know what you've shot and you know where you're going. So yes, you can't help but being intimately involved in the writing process.
And at one point, Zac, as Logan in his voiceover, mentions that as humans we're all sort of searching for the light in our lives to kind of save us. And I wondered how you brought that theme in with light, and particularly sunlight, visually in the film.
Yes, well, it's sorry. No, it's a funny thing. I think it's been an element of the kinds of films that I make. In a sense, I like to make films about light at the end of the tunnel. Because it's terrific to take audiences into a dark tunnel, but you have to give them some sense of hope they're going to come out the other side. So that reference at the beginning of the movie about finding the light, I guess, was me just sort of expressing in a way to the audience, we're going to go to some strange and interesting places, but we will come out the other end. So you give them a sort of a sense of the arc of the story, if you like. And something that at the end of the movie they go, oh, wait a minute, this is where we came in, wasn't it? yeah, now I understand what that was all about.
And it is ultimately hopeful, isn't it? And of course,
Yeah.
there are some very funny moments in the film. People would have seen in the trailer probably.
All right.
Beth doing the washing up and getting a bit distracted by
Oh.
Zac's physique.
Yeah.
How important is it to have some levity in there as well?
Oh, I think humour is extremely important, and I think especially when you're dealing with something that's very emotional, you don't want it to become so earnest, that it becomes tedious. I think, if anything, the humour that I've sort of wanted to lace through the story helps to ratchet the emotion up, because when we see Beth, for example, doing the washing up and she's fallen into this profound reverie of realizing that this is actually a man and not just somebody hanging around the kennel, it's both engaging for the audience but also funny because she is so intoxicated. And of course it's punctured by Blythe Danner's character's sudden remark, which is very funny, and the audience finds it highly amusing. And I think that sort of moment of humour leavens it and re-engages the audience in the emotion of the story at the same time.
And you mentioned Blythe Danner. I love her character, Ellie. I think we could all love a grandmother like that, couldn't we? And I like her philosophy on life as well. What does her presence sort of bring to the film, Blythe Danner's presence?
Well, I mean, she's a wonderful veteran, isn't she? And she's got such a storied career, behind her. And when you've got, these young stars like Zac Efron and a newcomer like Taylor Schilling, I think it's lovely to then pair them with somebody of that sort of enormous, history. I think back to other movies that I've made where there's been a figure like John Gielgud or Max von Sydow or Anthony Hopkins or these people who really bring another sort of gravitas into the middle of the story that you're telling. And to me, it's part of a successful ensemble to have that sort of collective together.
I think acting is probably one of the few professions where people work together with such vast differences in ages and experience, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that your job as a director is to make sure that everybody's acting in the same movie, because people do all bring their own point of view and their own thing, and that's what direction is. You're trying to point everybody in the same direction so that the world is coherent that you're creating.
And vital to any casting, of course, but particularly a romantic drama, is the chemistry between your leads. And how would you describe the way Taylor Schilling and Zac Efron play off each other?
Well, I loved the connection that they had between them. I mean, I was looking for it and had my fingers crossed, really, when I did some screen tests with Taylor together with Zac, and it was just immediately apparent. The way the glint in the eye, the way they look at each other, the little flickers of humour, there was an easy rapport between them, which, believe me, is just something you can't really manufacture. You either get it through human interaction or you don't. And so it was a huge thrill to me because I thought Taylor was a wonderful actress. The big question was, how would she be together with Zac? And that was answered in a very positive way.
And you've had exhibitions of your photography, of course, Scott, and I just wondered, was it yourself that took the photo of Taylor as Beth, which is the lucky charm, really, in the movie?
No, it wasn't. I mean, but you'd try to direct the photo, but not specifically this time. I have done certain things like that in some movies, just taken either photographs or taken some video or something that's been in the movie, but not on this occasion.
I'm a big fan of Australian wine. I just wondered, when you're not making your films, does your Yucca paddock vineyards keep you kind of quite busy, and is there a particular wine you would recommend to us?
Absolutely. I mean, my wife Kerry, who's also the co-producer on the film, really runs our vineyard business back in South Australia, which is in the Adelaide Hills region, and we produce a number of different wines, and we have a very nice little Sauvignon Blanc, which I'm sure is available on the web for anyone who wishes to explore it, the Yucca Paddock Vineyards.com.
Scott Hicks, thanks very much and all the best with the lucky one.
Thank you.
Thank you.